Hi, I'm Doug, and this is The Omnibus. Today we're going to talk a little bit about For the Love of Spock.
The review that Variety gave us when we first went on the air in September of 1966. Star Trek won't work.
For those of you who may not know, For the Love of Spock is a documentary directed by Adam Nimoy about his father, Leonard Nimoy. It's a really, really good documentary. It's fascinating. It's moving. There's all kinds of interesting information about Leonard Nimoy's career and his life and his relationship with his son. Apparently, Adam Nimoy approached his father about doing this documentary a number of years ago, and Leonard Nimoy was apparently very enthusiastic about doing it. He liked the idea and was very open to participating in the documentary. Unfortunately, Leonard Nimoy died before the documentary could be completed. But the interesting thing is that they interview all kinds of people who knew Nimoy personally, people who were affected by him, the likes of William Shatner, George Takei, some of the new cast of the new Star Trek movie who worked with him. And their insights into Nimoy are really interesting. The first part of the documentary talks about Nimoy's early life, his introduction to acting as a child, his move to Hollywood and his struggle to become a working actor. All of this is very interesting information, but of particular interest to Star Trek fans, I think, is the early days of Star Trek when he was first being introduced to Gene Roddenberry and the ideas about the show. And the thing that I found most fascinating was his process for finding Spock and what Spock was like. And it was very much affected by the other actors that he was playing off of. This is, to me, is a really interesting sign of an actor who's very aware not only of his own part, but of the project as a whole. For example, when working on the first pilot for Star Trek, The Cage, Jeffrey Hunter apparently had a very internalized process, and it was a very internal actor. He didn't show a lot. It was all very sub rosa. And Nimoy felt the need with his character Spock to be more boisterous and bigger to offset Jeffrey Hunter's approach. And the opposite happened when Hunter was replaced with William Shatner. William Shatner, being a very big actor and verbose and larger than life in a lot of ways, Nimoy then adapted his style to become more internalized and showing less and letting it be below the surface, which is very interesting because that goes a long way to really establishing the Spock character. And I find it interesting that as an actor, Nimoy pulled part of his character from the way he was interacting with the actors around him and how he felt he needed to be for the whole project. I think it's a really interesting bit of acting technique that a lot of actors could learn from. The latter half of the documentary, of course, deals with after Star Trek and going into the Star Trek movies. While that's all very interesting, it also deals with Adam Nimoy's relationship with Leonard. And apparently they had a difficult father and son relationship through much of their history and had a struggle. Sometimes they weren't talking. Sometimes they felt like they didn't understand each other. And that part of the documentary is very, very moving, especially when they get to the point where they're reconciling a little bit. It's a very, very powerful documentary. I found it touching. I found a lot of things that I did not know about Leonard Nimoy, which is surprising to me because I'm a big Star Trek fan from way back. But there were things about his family and about his son and his relationships with his family that I was not aware of, and it gives an interesting insight into the man and his life. I really enjoyed this documentary. It is powerful and moving and insightful, It has a really amazing musical score by Nicholas Pike, which is something I didn't expect for a documentary. It's a big orchestral musical score that's moving in the same way that the documentary itself is. Anyway, I highly recommend For the Love of Spock. It's a really terrific documentary. I enjoyed it immensely, and I highly recommend it.